are really happy and honored to have Evan Leybourn with us, serving the next generation of companies to thrive with uncertainty. He is the founder of the Business Agility Institute. Evan, you are really welcome, and we thank you for your presence with us today. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's absolute delight to be here, and as I was saying a few moments ago, this community is very vibrant, and it's a delight to be invited to be a part of it, albeit for a short time. I am based in Melbourne, Australia, hence the accent and the fact that it is nighttime and very dark outside. But one of the other elements, cultural elements of being Australian, is that we are very relaxed. If you have questions, please ask them. There is a reaction button at the bottom of the Zoom window. You can raise your hand using that, or you can type something in the chat. I will have that open to the side, or you can unmute yourself and just ask your question verbally. The downside, of course, being Australian is I don't speak French, because Australia is so far away from everybody, we don't speak any other languages. It is quite painful. But if you can bear with me in English, I'm going to be spending the next 20 minutes really diving into business agility and the specific topic called certain uncertainty. What it means to be an organization in the modern economy. So just bear with me for 2 seconds while I share my screen. And there we go. I hope everybody can now see that. So, first of all, let me make one very clear very clear point. Uncertainty, disruption, right? Ambiguity, VUCA. None of this is new. We have been talking about uncertainty for not decades, not even centuries, but thousands of years. There is an amazing story by Aesop called The Oak and the Reeds. 2,500 years ago. It goes as follows. A very large oak was uprooted by the wind and fell across the stream. It fell among some reeds who it thus addressed. I wonder how you, who are so weak, are not crushed by these strong winds. The reeds replied, you fight with the wind, and therefore you are destroyed, while we bend beneath the least breath of air and thus remain unbroken and escape. That is one of the best descriptions of agility I have ever read, and that is from thousands of years ago. There is nothing new in the concept of agility. Perhaps what is new is how fast and how dynamic the current marketplace is, and the fact that as organizations, there is no such thing as too big to fail. The current COVID-19 crisis definitely demonstrates that. So I'm going to ask you to open up a browser, whether it's on your computer or your phone, and I want you to go to this URL. Let me just... polev.com/bizagility. And I want you to write in one word, what kind of leader you want to be. I'll give you a second, a couple, like 30 seconds to do that. If anyone has an issue in accessing that, please message or tell me and we'll have a look. This should load any second. The joys. The reason why I'm asking this question is, at its heart, business agility really looks at leadership. It looks at, and I don't mean management, I mean how leaders of any kind, community leaders, thought leaders, business leaders, how they operate and how they work. Are people having problems in accessing this? No?
I think, did you copy the link
no.
to the chat?
It's okay, it's coming up. Just took time. It just took its time to update. Inspiring, empowering, these are fantastic words. I love the word inspiring because at its heart, a leader, especially in an agile organization, is one who inspires people to follow them. It is not someone who instructs, directs what to do, but instead is a role model for the mindset of agility, and people follow quite naturally. Adaptive, servant leader, absolutely. Empowering, I think that goes very much with inspiring. You can't be both. So this is a fairly small group, so I will move on. When we talk about leadership, this becomes important to understand what you need to do inside your organization to be agile. So normally at this point, I would show a little video that sort of talks about the need for agility. But you know what? I don't think I need to. Right now, COVID-19 has given all of us a burning platform. The need for agility is so obvious that most organizations on the planet, in every country, are looking to people like you, people like us, to go, how do we survive? How do we thrive? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about how do you survive? How do you thrive? What you're seeing here is what we call the domains of business agility. This is a model. It's not a framework. It doesn't tell you what to do. It doesn't tell you how to do it. What it tells you is what not to forget. So when you are working inside your organization, when you are working with a client, when you are working with leaders across any company, think about the journey that they are on. Think about the journey that you are on and ask yourself, what have we forgotten? Are we looking at our organization as a system? This is systems thinking. Or are we running an agile transformation, right? Focusing on Scrum or SAFe? Because the sad reality is that Scrum, and I love Scrum, I'm a huge fan, is insufficient. SAFe is insufficient. Less and DA and beyond budgeting and every single framework that you have is insufficient in its own. Right? And there's two key points I'm going to share, and then we're going to dive into this model. The first concept is called theory of constraints, right? Or specifically, with apologies to Eli Goldratt, it's Evans' theory of agile constraints. If you are familiar with the theory of constraints, you will know that it says that in any process, there is a constraining factor. Right? If it's a production line, you're building a car, and the engine team is the constraining factor, then it doesn't matter how fast your the team that's installing the doors is, right? Because you can only produce cars as quick as the engine team. So if you're going to optimize, transform your organization, you're going to do so ideally at that constraining point. The corollary to theory of constraints is that there is always a constraint. So if you started with the engine team and that is now more efficient than it was before. It is more adaptable. It is faster. It is better, higher quality. Right? The question becomes, what is the new constraint? And there's always a new constraint. So let me extend this to Evan's theory of agile constraints, with apologies to Eli Goldratt. An agile organization is only as agile as its least agile part. Think about that. It's quite natural for agile to emerge in technology, in software. 30 years ago, right, in the 80s and the 90s, it took years to bring a product to market. Right? 2, 3, 4 years was not unreasonable. Right? So as a response to that, agility, as a need to create agility in the system, agile, as we think of it, as we know it, emerged. Fast forward then to about 10 years ago. So 2003, 2004, 2005. So I started doing Agile back in 2003. We were doing Scrum. I was a director in the Australian government. So we had a Scrum team. We were developing software. It was good, right? But where did those changes go? Because they didn't go to the customer. They went to staging because operations controlled the deployment. So we had to wait for a release window in order to deploy. So the constraint to agility, we were making changes every 2 weeks, but the constraint to agility was now operations. So what do? We invent DevOps as a society. Fantastic. Once we invent DevOps, there's a new constraint. Right? Now we have an engine that can create change every 2 weeks. We have a release system, right, that can deploy change every, Amazon statistic, they deploy change every 11.3 seconds, something like that. Right? So think about it. If you can release change so quickly, where's the constraint? And I'll tell you, it's the broader business. It's HR, it's finance, it's marketing, it's compliance or governance. It doesn't matter if you can release every 11 seconds, if it takes you 3 months to hire the right person, or it takes you 18 months to get a budget approved. Right? Those are your constraints to agility, not Scrum, not your software teams, which means that all those transformations that you're doing have what we call diminishing returns. Right? There are other areas of the organization that you should be focusing. All those amazing agile coaches you have, or that you may be, right? Are they in the right place inside that organization? Are they transforming the right elements of the organization? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce you to this model, the domains of business agility. This is a very simple model. As I said, it's not a framework. It's not going to tell you how to do anything. What it is, however, is those characteristics that make up an agile organization. And as we go through this, I want you to ask yourself, is our transformation focusing on the right thing? Or are we focusing on the easy thing, or the area that we've always focused on? Now, this is not a long talk, right? So I will go through this relatively quickly. If you have questions around any of this, we can certainly go through it later, and that we have a lot of details on this in the Business Agility website. At the heart is the customer. So think of the customer as why you are in business. The customer is your purpose. And I'm going to say something that may be controversial to some of you. You are not in business to make money. You are in business to serve your customer. You need to make money in order to stay in business. So profit, and there's a great quote by Frederick Laloux. Profit is like the air. We do not live to breathe, but we do need to breathe in order to live. So organizations that focus on revenue to the exclusion of all else, right, are definitely not customer focused and are definitely not agile. In the outer ring, we have, so if this is who, sorry, if this is why, these three are who. And if you'll give me 1 second, Priya, could you please close that door? Could you please close that door? So around the, in that middle ring, we have three key domains: workforce, partners, and board. These are the three people. Not in here, please, Priya, not now.
I'm just trying to...
These are the three people, or the three types of people who need agility in different contexts. The workforce, they're the people who create value in your organization, whether they are employees or contractors or contingent or gig workers, it doesn't matter. Right? These are the people who are creating value. They need agility. This means your HR functions, your HR policies, the way that you engage with the workers inside your organization must be agile at all levels. Your partners, the broader ecosystem. No company exists in isolation. So what does this mean? This means that you need to have agility in your suppliers, in your distributors, in your vendors. Again, theory of constraints. You might be the most agile organization on the planet, right? But if your distributors can't give you feedback from the customers in a quick enough way, then it doesn't matter how agility you are because you are constrained by your partners, right? And the same is true of your suppliers or your vendors or anyone else in that ecosystem. The board, right? The board of directors as the representation of the owners, the shareholders of the company. I have seen more transformations fail because the board do not understand either agility or, in the worst case, they do not understand the customer, because the board is quite often the furthest people from the customer. So if they do not have agility, right, then with a single decision, a single comment, unthinkingly spoken, can destroy everything that you're working towards. So then we go to the outer ring. Right? Leadership, individuals, and operations. If this is why and this is who, this is what. This is what you need to be. Not how to do it, that's your choice. There are 1,000 different ways of doing it, but this is what you need to be. We'll start with the leadership domains: people management, one team, and strategic agility. People management, management has become a dirty word. And yet we know that more people leave companies because of bad managers than any other reason. This tells us that management is vitally and fundamentally important. As an organization, we're on a crusade to reclaim management, good management, not process management. We don't care about process management, but people, good people management, people who care about you as a whole person, who care about your career, who care about helping you and enabling you to be the best person you can be inside that organization and, in fact, outside that organization. The other key point I will make about people management, right, is that as it is a skill and it can be learnt. Right? We need better managers in organizations all around the world. For those of you who are quite familiar with like advanced forms of business agility, you may have come across a concept of self-management. I want to be absolutely clear. Self-management does not mean no managers. Self-management means everybody is a manager, which means the skill of management becomes even more important. One team, a sense of unity and common purpose across the organization. The role of the leader, and someone said the word inspiring before. Yes, the role of the leader is to inspire, to align and create that common purpose across their peers, the people who work with them, and of course the broader organization. If they're not aligned, if those 1,000 people aren't working in the same direction, well, you have a broken organization. Strategic agility, very important, especially right now. It doesn't, this is one of the few times in my life I can say an extreme statement and be correct. Right? Normally, there are always exceptions. Right? But in this case, I'm going to say something. There is no company on the planet whose strategic plan from January is still in action. Right? Every single company has been disrupted. right? In some positive or negative, some small and in many cases very large ways. Right? Strategic agility means having a vision of your strategy, and then your actual strategy emerges dynamically, organically over time as things go on.
I think it's perfect time as well that we've seen the reality of people's strategic agility in practice instantly, right?
Yes. And I talk about muscle memory, right?
Yeah.
It's those companies who don't have the muscle memory for agility, for strategic agility specifically, right? They're the ones who hit COVID-19 and just went, what the hell do we do? And they're making random decisions every day, like, and half the times they're making the right decision because a broken clock is still right twice a day, right? And then the other half the time they're making decisions that are sending them off a cliff, and they don't know the difference. But those organizations with that, who have gone to the gym, who've got that muscle memory, and obviously I don't go to the gym, it's something I do need to do, right? But the ones who have developed that muscle, that strategic agility muscle memory, are the ones who went, all right, this is another disruption, right? We know exactly how to deal with this. This is probably bigger than anything we've dealt with before, but you know what? We know what to do. And they're the ones who are responding to COVID-19 and not just reacting. Moving on from leadership, we talk about the three domains, the individual domains, right? So this is you as a person and everyone in your organization as people. Ownership and accountability, growth mindset, and craft excellence. Ownership and accountability looks at a heart, right? I need to own my work and I need to be held accountable for my work. It is a two-edged sword. Growth mindset, this has become a buzzword in the last 3 years. When we were talking about it, it wasn't quite as popular. I don't think I need to go into detail, but yes, safe to fail, open to learning, all those things that we know and talk about in terms of growth mindset, we need to inculcate across our organization. And lastly, craft excellence. Right? Very important, because you know what? If you're not good at your job, right? Whether you're a software developer, a marketer, an accountant, an ops person on the ops line, it doesn't. If you're not good at your job, no amount of agility is going to help. Right? So, way too often, organizations look at it as like, it's going to cost us too much money to reskill, right, an entire workforce in the latest technologies. You know what? We're just going to be agile, and that'll solve our problems. No. Right? Focus on the core skill, right? If that's the constraint that you have. The last three are structural agility, process agility, and enterprise agility. Structural agility it became sexy about 2 years ago with Spotify and tribes and squads and all that kind of stuff. And every organization went and did a restructure. And don't get me wrong, structural agility is important. Right? You can think of business agility and an agile organization as hashtag no handoffs. We do not, every time the flow of value passes between teams, we introduce complexity into the system and we break down, we break that flow of value and reduce agility in the system, the ability to adapt, the ability to listen to the customer and take on feedback. So we do need an organizational structure that is optimized for the value stream. I will note that if we are optimized for the value stream, we will lose, we do sub-optimize for something else. Right? And the current organizational design, the hierarchical functional design, is optimized for skills transfer. It's based on the old apprentice system. An apprentice blacksmith apprentices to a master blacksmith to learn the skill. Right? And our entire business model has grown from that apprentice system. It was fine when you don't need a team of blacksmithies, I'm not quite sure what the plural of blacksmith is. You don't need a team working on a single product. Right? Most of that work is individual. Right? However, today, the opposite is true. We need a team of cross-functional, cross-skilled people working in cohesion. So when that team is under different functional silos, right, we may have optimized for skills development, but we have sub-optimized for the flow of value, and that becomes a problem. Last two, process agility. This is where 90% of agile transformations focus. This is Scrum, this is Kanban, the software development process, the marketing process, the budgeting process. Right? We want that to be agile. Absolutely we do. Right? If that's your constraint, that's where you need to focus. My personal opinion is that most organizations have over-invested in process agility, and they have diminishing returns from that investment because the rest of the system doesn't have agility in it. Which then brings us to enterprise agility, which is a broader look at the system, because an organization is a complex adaptive system of intertwining processes and systems and tools. So an individual process may be agile, but again, they will be constrained by the surrounding processes and the interfacing elements of the organization. They must also have agility as a system. Right? So think of enterprise agility as systems agility. And once you have that, then yes, the rest of the organization, the rest of what you're doing becomes agile. So I'm going to pause there. I want to give a little bit of time for Q&A. All right? Who's got some questions?
Do I need to raise my hand or?
No, go for it.
Just go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just interesting. When we bring up these topics, and I'm just thinking about process agility, for example, one of the things that I've noticed in organizations is that they think they can kind of just create an agile process and that would be done. And they know that's it. And they don't actually get the concept. And I think the problem sometimes with explaining these models to people is that they go, okay, we'll just do that and it's done. And it's not the kind of understanding of it behind it that is the value. And I just wonder from your experience, how do you get people on board with the kind of thinking behind it rather than let's just apply these things and then we're done. We've got an agile process in place, we're finished.
So two things. That journey takes, and so as an organization, the Institutes, we are a research organization. We don't do consulting, we don't do training. We're a membership organization. We have a library with thousands of case studies, sorry, that's an exaggeration, about 800 case studies. And we have 6 now research teams around the world. Mm-hmm. One of the findings we had last year with one of our research teams is that the average length of a business agility transformation to be sustainable is 8 years. Right? So sustainable means it won't revert back when the energy gets taken out of that transformation or of that journey. Now, there are obviously you get benefits well before 8 years. You get benefits starting in about 6 months, especially if, in fact, some of these areas like customer, if you focus on the customer, you actually get benefits in about 6 months versus some of the others like structural agility. You don't actually get benefits from a structural transformation until about 2 years after the fact. But process agility, so as an organization, you need to understand that these cultural changes will take a lot of time. And in some cases, it doesn't matter where you start. Right? But what matters is that you move around. You've got to touch all of the domains. Yeah. Ideally, where the organization is constrained culturally. Is it strategy? Is it the board? Is it the partners? So focus on the constraining factor, but just get started and start moving. Don't expect cultural change to happen within 6 months or 12 months or even 2 years. The change will occur when people see the value of the change. And that is a very personal thing for each individual. And some people will never make it, to be honest. Some people just will be gone.
Really insightful, really insightful. Thank you very much, Evan, for sharing all these cases with us and all these insights. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure to have you here.